Good evening. Welcome to Day 7 of the 44th Toronto International Film Festival and the North American premiere of Frankie, directed by Ira Sachs. My name is Adam Cook, and I'm from the festival programming team. To begin, we would like to acknowledge that this event takes place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in this community. We are pleased to present this film at the Visa Screening Room at the Princess of Wales Theatre and would like to extend our gratitude to Visa Canada for making this possible. We'd also like to remind you that this film is eligible for the Grolsch People's Choice Award. You can vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. We would also like to thank Mongrel Media, Sony Pictures Classics, and SBS International for making this possible. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, Ira Sachs has long been one of the great independent American filmmakers. His films The Delta and Married Life screened here at TIFF. His other films include Keep the Lights On, Love is Strange, and Little Men. Frankie is his latest film, and I think it exemplifies what I love about his work, which is a beautiful balance of exploring deep human concerns in a way that is profoundly warm, caring, sensitive, and loving. It is an honor to have him here in Toronto for the North American premiere. Please stick around after the film for a Q&A, but first, to say a few words, join me in welcoming to the stage Ira Sachs.
Thank you, Adam. I want to thank Cameron Bailey for bringing the film here, the Toronto Film Festival, which is kind of, to me, the best film festival in the world. And I say nice things about a lot of festivals, but I say that exemplary thing about this festival because it's really the most public, it's the most educated, it's the most passionate. I was here 26 years ago, with a film called The Delta, and it was in a tiny little theater, and somehow I'm here still showing films to this audience today. I can tell you, when I was here with The Delta, I wasn't sure that I would be able to maintain a career making the kinds of films that mean so much to me, and I think it's festivals like this which make it possible and give you the affirmation and the public moments like this that encourage us to do the work we do. So thank you all. I'm not going to talk too much about the film in advance. I look forward to the Q&A afterwards. I will say that when I was here in 1996, I did not make a film with this actress who I had the great joy of making Frankie with. I love her on screen and off, Isabelle Huppert.
Good evening. Thank you so much. It's thrilling to be here. It's really wonderful. I share what Ira said about the Toronto Film Festival. Thank you so much. And well, I hope you like the film as much as I like doing it. I saw Ira's movies some time ago. I saw Love is Strange. I saw Little Men. Sometimes you see films and it's a nice feeling. It's more than a nice feeling. Films come from far, from abroad, and yet watching the films, you feel kind of at home watching the films. So I wanted to share that home with Ira, and here I am, and it's a great joy for me being here, and I hope you enjoy the film, and I will see you later. Thank you so much.
I love how you use the geography of Sintra and these inclined pathways as a formal element in the film. Could you tell us about the genesis of the story, but also the choice to set it in Sintra?
Sure. The 10 years ago, I saw a film by Satyajit Ray. It's called Kanchenjunga, and it's about a family on a vacation in the Himalayan mountains. It takes place in one day. It tells the story of 9 family members who have come together, and there's a crisis. And I was very, very moved by the film, and I was also challenged by its structure. I thought it was just like a beautiful puzzle. And so that movie was in my head for a decade as an inspiration. Isabelle and I met after Love is Strange. She saw the movie and liked it.
Liked it.
And we started a conversation, and so I spent some time thinking what would be a project. I've always responded to her work and the way she is in the moment as an actress, and it was exciting to think of the right film, but I knew I couldn't make a film with Isabelle Huppert in France. I just wouldn't know enough. So it occurred to me that this was a good project. This mountain film and this family on a vacation film would be a good project to start with Isabelle with. My co-writer, Mauricio Zacharias, is Brazilian, but his family's from Portugal, and he suggested we look at Sintra. And I remembered when he said that I had been to Sintra on a family vacation when I was 14 with my mother and 2 sisters, and I had a diary. And I thought this might be right. We went back to Sintra for 10 days. And in the course of that visit, I knew I could make an intimate film there. I could not really make a film about Portugal, for example, but I could make a film about that place and that landscape. And we ended up writing very specifically for the Sintra region that we discovered. In our mind, it's a bit fictional. It begins with the town as kind of the first chapter of the film. Then there is the kind of magic forest in the middle, and then there's the mountaintop at the end. And that was really the passage of the story and very much what Sintra gave to me that I wanted to share in the film.
My next question is for Isabelle. You spoke before the film about admiring Ira's work, but could you talk about what drew you specifically to this story and the character of Frankie?
Well, it was a great role for me, and I especially like the way Ira films people's behavior on the surface, and yet there is so much going on underneath. I don't know. For me, the movie is a bit almost psychoanalytical. You know, I mean, you say things, and that's what you say consciously, but it's like your unconscious is very much at work, and cinema is the best media, you know, to show all these inner thoughts that the characters are not even aware of sometimes. And for example, in that long scene with my son, which I like very much, there's so much being said on that scene that ends up with this very violent gesture from my son because he throws the bracelet, because she says things like, you know, like it was nothing, but it's so much loaded. And I think Ira is so much a master to capture these kind of contradictory moments. You say things, but underneath you think something else. And I like the way his camera enables the actors to express all these complexities and these ambiguities. And each scene, I think, is really loaded with this. Even the scene, for instance, with the friend. Also, I think it's very rare when there's so little explanations, but yet everything is being said, I think, and being understood. And it's never psychological. It never goes through explanations. But meanwhile, I think it reaches people even more deeply.
Ira, you work with quite an international ensemble here. Could you talk about the cast and how you work with them?
Sure. You know, I've often made films about people who are somehow displaced or not at home. I've made a film about a Russian woman in Memphis. I've made a film about a Danish guy in New York. I've read a Chilean woman in New York. So the idea of displacement as an interesting moment in people's lives that you can kind of see something different has always been interesting to me. So in a way, this cast came together based on those actors. We wrote the film with Isabelle in mind for Frankie, Marisa for Eileen, Greg Kinnear, Jérémie Renier. All those parts were written specifically for that set of actors. I think what I most try to think about when I'm casting is, will these actors have a style that will make sense a unified way? Will they be acting in the same movie, and will they be living in the same family? And I had a strong sense that this group would be so. And this family, in a way, mirrors many, including my own, which I raised. My husband and I have 2 kids. We raised them with their mother, who lives next door to us. She's got a partner. There's this idea of the eclectic, which has become, for me, it's familiar. It's how I live.
From a performer's perspective, Isabelle, could you talk about working with this cast? You get to share intimate moments with most of them, and how you work together.
Well, for me also it was interesting because I had sometimes to act in French and sometimes in English, and it's interesting to do it in the same film. I did movies sometimes in English, sometimes in French, but rarely in the same film. And it's interesting because I think you're a slightly different person when you don't speak your own language. So also for that, I was happy to go back and forth between the English and the French. Jérémie has been my son once in a Belgian film that I did some time ago. Pascal has been my husband about 3 times already, so we have a strong relationship together. And of course, I enjoyed playing with Marisa and Brendan and all the people around, especially Marisa and Brendan, because those are the characters that I share the most scenes with. And well, it was so very natural, very easy. When the general tune and core of the film is so obvious, so evident, and when the camera also is so smart, so actors become very smart too, in the way.
If there are any questions in the audience, please raise your hand. Yes, go ahead. So the question is for Isabelle about working with so many long shots and also with silence, and whether that's a challenge.
Well, not so long actually. I mean, it's long, but there is a lot of walking in the film, which I think is really interesting. It's a way also of having the characters relating to the environment and to the nature, and I think this relationship between the characters and the nature is very. Is really almost the mark of the film. It's very important, so for that, yes, we have. It was necessarily a long shot, and I think it creates a very interesting atmosphere for the actors. But I never felt, the camera was so far. I felt the camera was, even though, I mean, sometimes far, but still very quite close, and. Silences, I mean, there are not so many silences. I think it's equally silent and sometimes talkative. So, but I think it was always matching the characters' feelings. I always felt comfortable with it. I had no problems with this.
One of the things about the film is I was working with a wonderful Portuguese cinematographer, Rui Poças, and he and I, when we came up with the strategy of how to shoot the film. We did watch a lot of Eric Rohmer movies because we were doing films about people walking and talking in nature, so it seemed like a good place to go. But one of the things that became apparent is, it's a very theatrical film. It's a film in which you have 9 stories and they take place in about 6 hours, and you have arcs, and so it's realistically acted, but it's also constructed. And I think this kind of long shot allows the audience to connect, hopefully both to the character and also to the performer, to the vulnerability of performance, to the beauty of performance, which I think this daylight film doesn't hide, and it also exposes, because the actors have nowhere to go and we can never cut from the actor without movement. So it's all them.
More questions? Shout if I don't see you. Yeah, go ahead. Question is about the final scene and final shot of the film.
Yeah, you know, I think I try to keep meaning. I think all of my films have ended with a sense of openness and the kind of option for individual members of the audience to interpret and to feel in their own way. That being said, I think I was really struck in that location by the power of the land. And it seemed to me that ultimately the land was going to survive after we shot this movie and after these characters moved on and in lots of things. And so I kind of wanted to document that. I also do think of it as the end of a play. There's 9 characters. There was a point when we were shooting the movie on that day where everyone had new costumes because they had gone for a walk, and we were like, oh, they're all going to wear new things on this new scene. And then I realized we needed to retreat to all their, except for Isabelle, who does change costume in a really striking way, I think, in that scene. Everybody else is wearing their kind of iconographic, you know, almost cartoon self, so that when you see them from a distance, you can actually read them as characters based on the color of their clothes and the shape of their outfits. And so to me, that was a kind of, it's almost like a graphic novel in a certain way. It also, I think, gives time for everyone to sort of look at these 9 individuals and think about how the movie or the day has changed things. What you've learned about them in the course of the experience of watching the movie. So those were some of the things.
More questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm probably going to fan out a little bit for Isabelle right now. Thank you so much. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I have to say, I have loved seeing you every year, and what a different role last year. Greta was one of our favorite films. You were exceptional in that. And what a completely different character this year, and there was Ella, and I would love to know your diversity now, the language, the international scale that you're on now. How are you choosing roles? How are you choosing where to put your time?
So the question is for Isabelle about how you choose roles now, considering how diverse, both in terms of character and in the country of production you're working in.
Well, sometimes they choose me. No, it's true. I mean, it's a mutual, and not fatal, but mutual attraction between the roles and me. No, well, I choose roles. I think there is no movie experience that's being worth without the idea of who is going to do it. And for me, the key piece of the building is the director. So I choose roles also, accordingly to who is going to do it. For me, it's cinema is a language, and for me, only I can hear a language very individual, very specific. I'm interested to do a role. So I choose a role when I want to work with the director. That's how I do. For example, I didn't really choose that role. I chose to work with Ira Sachs, and he came up with that role. It could have been another role. Well, it pleased me, I'm playing an actress, so it's okay.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. Ira, Isabelle, thank you so much for being with us here in Toronto. Don't forget to vote for the People's Choice Award and enjoy the rest of the festival.